The first thing I saw in that coal tipple wasn't graffiti or bats. It was a mattress with a rope bolted into the concrete right beside it. It hit me wrong immediately. Not urban explorer wrong. Not kids drinking wrong. The mattress sagged in the middle, stuffing torn out, stains soaked so deep they'd turn black. The rope ran to a metal cuff screwed into the floor. The cuff was the thing that froze me. Not rusty, not dusty. It had been wiped clean. Eastern Kentucky, friend of a friend, wanted creepy pics in an old mine site. I grew up there. I knew better. But I needed gas money, and he wouldn't shut up about how epic it would look, so I went anyway. We took a holler road that kept shrinking until it felt like the trees were folding over the hood. GPS just spun. No bars, no houses, just old rusted equipment half swallowed by brush. The kind of place people forget on purpose. He kept leaning out the window with his phone, hyped, while I watched for freshly graded dirt, game cams, anything that said somebody still cared who came up here. I didn't see any. That should have scared me more than if I had. The tipple sat over the road like a rusted bridge to nowhere. Corrugated metal peeled back, conveyor belts frozen mid-air, windows busted out. Not haunted house pretty, just dead and dangerous. We parked by a loader with the cab smashed in. I shut off the engine and listened. Nothing but wind and insects and the occasional pop from old metal cooling in the shade. Inside the main building, the floor buckled under a skin of cold dust. The air tasted like battery acid and mold. Every step felt like a bad bet. We picked across old belts and rotten boards, shining our phone lights ahead, stepping where the steel still looked thick. He kept laughing, calling me a chicken, telling me to live a little. I told him people cooked dope in places like this, dumped things they didn't want found. He rolled his eyes and said that made it cooler. I didn't feel cool. I felt watched, even though I knew it was just the way sound bounced in those big hollow rooms. Our footsteps slapped around and came back wrong. Every clank made my shoulders jump. Then we found a room with a mattress. Stained as fuck. Rope. Cuff. Clean metal in a building that looked ready to collapse. My stomach tightened so hard I felt sick. I told him we were leaving. Full stop. He laughed, said it was just junky stuff, that every abandoned place had a mattress. I told him junkies don't bolt cuffs into concrete. He shrugged and lifted his camera anyway. That's when I saw the Polaroids. They were nailed to a beam, 4 of them, maybe 5, at about eye level. Edges curled a little, but the colors still sharp. Every shot was close up, wrists, ankles, rope, skin dug in, red and bruised, faces cut off by the frame. Whoever took them knew exactly what they wanted to show. One photo had the same mattress in it, same rope, same cuff, different person, different stains. I didn't say anything at first. My mouth went dry. My chest started to buzz. When I finally got words out, they sounded too loud. We're done. We're leaving now. He started arguing again. Said we could expose something, said we should film, that nobody would believe us otherwise. I told him I didn't give a fuck if anyone believed us. Then we heard boots on gravel below. Not light steps, not a raccoon or some stray dog. Heavy, slow, sure. Someone who knew exactly where to put his weight in that broken building. The pattern of the steps told me more than I wanted to know. This was routine for him. My buddy hissed that we should hide and record. I almost swung on him. Instead, I grabbed his sleeve and yanked him toward the nearest ladder. We scrambled up onto a catwalk that ran over the room, lay flat on the grate so the rust bit into my chest. Metal stairs groaned under us as the man came up. A voice floated up, calm but pissed. "You're late." He thought we were someone else. That sentence slid into my brain like ice. Someone else was supposed to be here. Someone who belonged in that cuff. Through the grate, I saw the top of his head and shoulders. Gray ball cap, sweat ringed. Stocky neck. Thick arms in a faded work shirt. No hurry in his movements. He walked straight into the mattress room like he'd done it 100 times. He checked the cuff first, like he was inspecting equipment. Pulled the rope, tested the bolt. Then he knelt by a backpack in the corner, I swear hadn't even registered for me. Unzipped, looked inside, zipped it back. Everything about him said habit. Practice. This wasn't a one-off. My phone buzzed. Spam call. That soft vibration in my pocket sounded like a gunshot in there. He stopped, head tilted, listening. Then he looked straight up through the grate. Our eyes met through that grid of rust. His weren't shocked, just calculating, shifting from plan A to plan B. I didn't think. I kicked my buddy and ran. The catwalk shook under us, flakes of rust and coal dust raining down. The man roared, an ugly, raw sound, and hit the stairs hard. The whole structure screamed with him. We burst into daylight, and I didn't even glance at the road. Straight lines are for bullets. We cut for the tree lean, slid down a loose slope, rocks and slag rolling under our feet. I grabbed at briars, tore my palms open, didn't care. Something solid slammed into the tree next to my head, a rock or a chunk of concrete. Bark exploded into my face. If that had been 6 inches left, I'd be out cold on that hillside. We hit a creek at the bottom and followed it because water at least doesn't lie about where it goes. Waded through slick stones, shoes filling, ankles screaming. We kept snapping at each other. Him yelling that we'd blown the chance to get proof, me yelling that he almost got us snatched. Every snapped twig behind us sounded like a second set of footsteps. I refused to look back. If he was there, I didn't want to see his shape closing in. Took us about 3 hours to get out, maybe more. Time stretched in that heat and panic. Eventually the trees thinned and the creek slid under a rusted culvert. We crawled through and came out on a different gravel lane, like we'd crawled into another county. A woman stood by a mailbox, smoking, watching us like stray dogs that wandered up. She took in the mud, the blood on our hands, the way we kept glancing over our shoulders. We stammered something about getting lost near the old mine. Her mouth flattened. She told us, real quiet, never to go near the old washer again. Wouldn't explain. Wouldn't meet my eyes after she said it. Just flicked her cigarette, turned, and walked back to her house like she'd already decided we were someone else's problem. I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. Kept seeing that cuff, that backpack, those photos nailed up like trophies. I thought about calling the cops a dozen times. Every time I picture the conversation, me admitting to trespassing, them shrugging, maybe sending a cruiser up there next month if they remembered. I'd grown up watching a lot of things get ignored, so I watched the news instead. For weeks I searched the county name, raid, arrest, kidnapping, anything. Nothing. No bust at the old tipple. No missing person discovered and saved. No shallow grave found in those hills. Just high school sports, church fish fries, a car wreck on 15. That mattress is probably still there. So is he. To the man at the tipple who had a cuff ready for whoever was supposed to be late, let's not meet. I realized the guy behind my trailer knew my schedule better than I did when he turned off his porch light every time I got home after dark. I'd take that last curve, see his big white floodlight blasting down over my driveway like a stadium, and the instant my headlights hit the bottom of that hill, click, black. Not a minute before, not a minute after, just me and the dark and the creek. Southern West Virginia, cheap rent because the place leaned over that muddy creek and half the road washed out every time it rained more than 20 minutes. My trailer sat halfway up the hill, kind of sagging on one side. His old farmhouse lurked higher, swallowed by trees. Floodlight bolted to a pole and aimed straight at my driveway, like a prison tower. First month, I only saw him from a distance. Tall, always in the same camo jacket, no matter the weather, hands jammed in his pockets. He'd stand by that pole and just stare while I hauled groceries or laundry baskets like watching was his job. No wave, no nod, not even a grunt. Just a shape on the hill, soaking me in. At first I tried to act normal. New place, small town, people stare. I told myself that on repeat. But it didn't feel like curiosity. It felt like judgment, like he'd already decided what I was and now he just collected proof. Then the little things started. My trash can kept moving. I'd leave it beside the back steps, come home, and it'd be lined up perfect by the road, lid turned just so, like someone followed a rule. I pushed it back. Next day, same thing. It wasn't the wind. The ground sloped wrong for that. Then I noticed my back steps. I dragged mud up there every day from work, kept meaning to sweep, never did. One morning I stepped out and the boards looked wiped, mud gone, leaves gone, everything neat. I never touched a broom. That meant someone stood where I was standing, close to the door while I wasn't home. While I trusted an empty hill. The boot prints showed up under my bedroom window. It had rained all night, ground soft and sticky. I glanced down while I drank coffee and saw them, long, narrow prints sunk deep, toes toward the trailer, right under where my head hit the pillow. The tread didn't match my shoes. I stood there with my mug halfway to my mouth, staring at those prints until the coffee went cold. That's not being neighborly. That's someone listening through the wall. I called my landlord from the gas station because the holler killed my signal. Told her about the prints, the steps, the trash, the staring. She saw like I'd asked her to move a couch. Said, he's harmless. Just doesn't like strangers up his holler. Don't stir him up. Harmless. I hung up and wanted to smash the phone. Easy word to say when you don't sleep 6 feet from some guy's boot marks. After that, I started clocking him the way he clocked me. If I pulled in before dark, the floodlight stayed on and he'd be there beside the pole, head turned just enough so I knew he watched. If I worked late and didn't hit the driveway till 10 or 11, the routine kicked in. Bright white cone over the hill, my headlights touched the gravel, boom, dark. Every single time. Not a timer. Not coincidence. Him. One night, I dragged myself home from a double, brain fried, body buzzing. I turned onto that road and saw the floodlight blasting across my trailer and carport. I already knew what would happen, but it still punched me when it did. My headlights rolled up the hill, brushed his yard, and his light died. The darkness rushed down from the trees like it had been waiting. I stopped the car and just sat there with the engine running, fingers tight on the steering wheel. 30 feet to the door. That was all. I told myself to stop being a baby and get out. Then I heard gravel crunch beside my door. Not ahead of me, not behind, right next to my window. Close. Heavy, deliberate steps, 1, 2, 3. The shape on the hill wasn't on the hill anymore. I slammed the locks down so fast my fingers slipped. My heart hammered, loud enough, I swore whoever stood out there could hear it. The glass beside my face ticked soft. Not knock, just knuckles brushing, testing, like someone checked the freshness of fruit. A slow drag along the top of the window, fingertips trailing. That set something off in me. I snapped. I yelled that I had a gun and I'd use it if he touched the handle. Total bullshit. I didn't own anything more dangerous than a frying pan, but the words shot out anyway, raw and too loud. The sound seemed to hang in the car. His footsteps backed away, not fast, not scared, just thoughtful. Gravel shifted, then silence. He knew I lied. I could feel it. He just didn't feel like pushing it that night. I sat there another few minutes, sweating, then grabbed my bag, clenched my keys between my fingers like claws, and sprinted to the door without looking left or right. Slammed it behind me, locked it, shoved a chair under the knob like that flimsy would stop him if he decided it wouldn't. I didn't sleep much. I just lay there, listening to the creak and every pop of the trailer frame. By morning, I made up my mind. I drove into town, bought 2 cheap deer cams that ate almost all the cash I had left, and screwed them onto the back steps and under my bedroom window. The plastic felt weak in my hand, but the little lenses gave me a stupid feeling of power. Like I finally put eyes on my side. When I left for work, they both blinked red at me. When I came home, they were gone. Not ripped boards, not broken mounts. Nails still in the wood, holes neat, cameras just missing. No note, no joke, nothing. Just proof someone came so close to my bedroom again that they could unscrew things and walk away without fear. Something in me snapped harder then. I stomped up his hill, half sliding in the loose gravel, rehearsing in my head how I'd scream about trespassing and theft and boundaries. I hit the top and my words died. His porch rail held 3 game cams, bigger, nicer, angled neatly down at my trailer. 3 little black circles pointed straight at my door, my car, my bedroom windows. I didn't need to ask where mine went. The farmhouse door opened before I even reached the steps. He stepped out like he'd been waiting behind it, listening to my breathing come up the hill. Same camo jacket, same calm face. No surprise, no guilt. He looked past me like I was already where he expected me to be. "You don't get to film my holler," he said, voice flat. Not a question, just a rule. He didn't ask why I put cameras up, didn't mention the missing ones. My hand shook. I told him to turn his damn cameras away from my windows, that he didn't get to watch when I slept or came home or changed clothes. I told him he was a creep. I probably spat more than I spoke by the end of it. He just smiled, small and mean. "Road's mine. Creek's mine. Light's mine. You're just renting air here." The way he said it sat on my skin like bugs. I thought about calling the cops, but what would I even report? My neighbor stares. My neighbor steals cameras. My neighbor turns his light off on purpose. They'd say the same thing the landlord said. Harmless. Old school. Don't stir him up. But I already felt stirred up every second I sat inside that trailer. I started packing the next day. Quiet at first, stuffing bags under the bed, stacking boxes in the kitchen. I didn't want to give him a show. I saved my tips, begged my sister for a couch to crash on, signed a new lease, basically blind just to get out. I circled a move-out day on my calendar and counted down like a prisoner. When that day came, I loaded my car from morning till afternoon. Every time I walked to the trunk, he stood by that pole, hands in pockets, watching. He didn't yell. He didn't help. He just tracked every box like he wanted an inventory of whatever he was losing control of. He kept the floodlight on the whole time, even at noon, bright and pointless in the middle of the day, bleaching everything so my eyes hurt. It felt like he branded me with it on the way out, like he wanted to make sure I knew whose beam I walked through. I never caught him doing anything technically illegal. Never got a picture. Never heard him threaten me out loud. But I still feel him sometimes when I pull into a new driveway late and see a porch light flip off. I still check under the bedroom window for prints. I still wake up thinking I heard knuckles barely tap the glass. I still don't know if he meant to hurt me or just control the little world he thought he owned. Either way, that kind of attention doesn't feel like safety. It feels like someone counting how long it would take to walk from his porch to your door. My cousin swears the only reason we're alive is because of the Bible verse our aunt scratched on the tailgate years before. I think the men at the top of the road just decided we weren't worth killing. He brings it up every Thanksgiving, like he has to say it out loud or it'll stop being true. He'll tap his beer on his knee, look at me across whatever table we're at, and say, if Aunt Carol hadn't gone all Sunday school on that truck, we'd be dead. Everybody laughs like it's some wild story we cooked up, but I never laugh. I still feel my hands slipping on that steering wheel, sweat soaking into the cheap Walmart cover, that sense that the air itself wanted us gone. Eastern Tennessee mountains, heat thick enough to chew. We chased a deer trail too far and ended up on a rutted track instead of the Forest Service road we meant to find. It was supposed to be a shortcut, some line my cousin remembered from when he was a kid. Dad used to come up this way all the time. They clear cut up here back in the day, that kind of shit. I trusted him because he's older and louder and acts like he knows everything. Truck climbed past old trailers and single wides tilting into the hillside, then past even those. Places I remembered from years back were gone now, half collapsed, yards swallowed by kudzu, toys still in the dirt like the kids just vanished. We bounced over washouts, frame groaning, mud snapping up against the undercarriage. My cousin kept saying, "We're fine, we're almost to the ridge," even as the bars dropped off my phone one by one. After a while, there weren't any houses, just stripped out cars and kudzu and that sour, chemical stink you only notice when the wind shifts. The truck had to crawl in first gear, tires sliding into ruts that could break an axle. My cousin turned the radio down, which is how I knew he was nervous. He always cranks it when he's actually fine. We came around a switchback and almost rammed the ATVs waiting across the road. Just there, filling the track, like they'd known the exact moment we'd come around. 3 of them, side by side, headlights off. For men, sleeves rolled, faces windburned, arms roped with muscle. Nobody smiled. They didn't look surprised, either. That bothered me more than the guns I couldn't see, but knew were there. I hit the brakes, so hard my seat belt bit into my collarbone. Gravel popped under the tires. For a second, nobody moved. No birds, no bugs, nothing. Just the ticking of the engine and the faint chink of one guy's boot on the red clay as he stepped forward. One stepped up, rested his boot on our bumper like he owned the whole goddamn mountain, and asked why we were on Family Road. His voice was flat, not angry, just checking, like he already knew we didn't belong and wanted to hear what kind of lie we'd pick. My cousin tried to joke, something dumb like, didn't see the welcome sign, and his voice cracked on welcome. I wanted to punch him for that. I kept my hands on the wheel and watched the hillside instead, because not looking at them felt safer somehow. That's when I saw the greenhouse plastic tucked under branches, the blue barrels, the extra fuel cans. Tarps staked low to the ground, hose lines snaking up through the trees. Meth or weed or something worse. Either way, we'd just driven into someone's income. Out there, that's church. You mess with what feeds people, they don't call cops. They dig. My mouth went dry. I apologized, said we were lost, said we thought this was the service road that cut over to the main ridge. Tried to keep my accent soft, local, tried not to over-explain. Guys like that smell fear the way dogs smell meat. Another guy peeled off from the group, walked around to the bed of the truck like he had all the time in the world. I heard his boots on the gravel behind us. Saw him in the side mirror, squinting at the tailgate, wiping mud with his thumb. He leaned in, stopped, stared, saw the old chalk writing my aunt had left. A verse reference in God Sees, half rubbed off by years of mud and tailgate slams. Aunt Carol did that one summer after my uncle rolled the truck drunk and walked away. Said she pled the blood over the vehicle. We made fun of it back then. Call it the Jesus truck. He went still, real still. Everything about him tightened, but he didn't move an inch. Then he reached into the bed and picked up the rusted crosstie, plate my uncle used as a weight to keep coolers from sliding. Heavy, scarred metal the size of paperback. He turned it over like he expected blood to drip off it. Ran his thumb along the rust like he was tracing a memory. You from the next ridge? He asked finally. Accent matched ours now, less hard. The edge dropped out of his voice. Kin to the H, family? My cousin said yes too fast. Jumped on it. Yeah, we're H, S on mom's side. Voice bright, stupid, desperate. I wanted to elbow him, shut him up, but my arms felt nailed to the wheel. I kept my mouth shut because I honestly didn't know if we were or not, and it seemed like the kind of test you only got one shot at. The first man watched my cousin, then me. His eyes walked over my face like he was matching it to someone he'd buried. He squinted, then spat into the dirt, jaw working like he'd bitten something sour, like mercy tasted bad to him. Then he told us to back down slow and forget this turn. Another guy stepped closer, close enough that I smelled stale smoke and sweat and something chemical that burned my nose. He leaned into my window, forearm on the door, and said, almost gently, "You don't come here again. You don't tell law. You do, and the holler'll eat you." He didn't blink when he said it, didn't raise his voice, just laid a fact on the table. I nodded so hard my neck hurt. My cousin muttered something like, we're good, but his lips barely moved. We left. I eased off the clutch, but my foot shook so bad my cousin stalled twice, grinding gears, lurching us forward and back like a drunk on stilts. Every time the engine died, I thought they'd change their minds, decide we'd seen too much. My vision tunneled. I could feel their eyes on the back of my neck until we rounded the next switchback and lost them. For half a mile, nobody talked. My cousin finally blew up first. "Why the fuck didn't you say anything?" He snapped, like I'd somehow made it worse by not praising his dumb lie. I shot back that he didn't know, for sure we were kin, that he could have picked the wrong goddamn name and gotten a shot then and there. We yelled over each other, voices bouncing inside that little cab. Both of us were being dumb enough to come up that road in the first place. When we hit pavement, The truck hummed smooth again like nothing had happened. I pulled over and we both got out at the same time, walked in opposite directions, hands on our knees, just trying not to puke. My shirt stuck to my back. I couldn't stop seeing that man's eyes when he said the holler would eat us. No drama, no threat, just certainty. We didn't tell anybody that day. Not our parents, not our friends. It felt like if we talked about it, those men would hear through the trees somehow. For a couple weeks, life slid back into normal grooves. Work, cheap beer, Sunday dinners. But every time I took the truck on the highway, I checked the mirror a little more than before. Every ATV I saw in the back of somebody's trailer made my stomach knot. A month later, 4 trailers burned on that hillside. News called it electrical and moved on in a day. They showed a 15-second clip of smoking tin and a melted swing set, and then went right back to weather. Nobody mentioned greenhouses. Nobody mentioned ATVs. Nobody mentioned the people who didn't make it out. My aunt heard which holler and went white. She dropped the dish she was holding. It shattered in the sink, and she didn't even flinch, just stared past us at the wall. Turns out we were distant kin to somebody up there, through a line nobody talks about because it runs crooked, jailbirds, addicts, folks who vanished and stayed vanished. She told us about an old cousin who'd got mixed up with the wrong crowd in that holler, how she used to pray over him by name, how she'd written verses on everything he touched. When he died, she kept the habit, started writing on trucks, on coolers, on her own damn front door. That stupid chalk verse bought us a sliver of mercy for being almost theirs. Not enough to invite us in, just enough not to put us in the ground with them. My cousin clings to that. He thinks God saw, God marked us, God moved that man's heart. Maybe he's right. Maybe those guys looked at that writing, thought about some half-remembered aunt or grandma who used to drag them to church, and couldn't pull the trigger. I still think about the way that man said the holler would eat us. Not like a threat, like a fact, like he'd seen it happen and shoveled dirt over what was left.